When you enter in a system, a programmed society. So you enter through the woman, that is a portal. Spiritually, the woman is a portal. Then you enter through the woman, who probably is part of a family setup, somebody's wife or somebody's daughter, even if in whatever matter, in whatever form that you enter, be it a single mom, be it a married woman, it's still within a family, because that person belongs to a certain setup, a family. They answer to a certain name. They answer to certain creeds. They answer to a certain caste system. So it's ensured that you enter through a programmed system. Then they name you. When you're named, your name represents certain deities, certain cultures, give pilgrimage to certain deities, and that it's predictive programming, like that. Because that's to ensure that everyone lives within a system, and that no one goes rogue, or no one is being rebellious or anything like that. That's how, when you in your family, when you start turning away from certain forms of either if you turn away from religion, or you don't want to go to school, then they start labeling you as rebellious. They're like, you are against the system, you are against this and that. So these are all forms to ensure that you conform. So you conform from day one, when you've not even consented to you being present, you've not consented to the systems on ground, you already are part of the system. And that's why I say it's not easy. A lot of people, I've had a lot of narratives being propagated, where people say they are against the school system, that it has to be abolished, that they have to abolish the government of the day, of the land, and also the land, they have to abolish a religion and all that. These are things that are part and parcel of this realm, part and parcel of the world. They will never be abolished. The systems will only change, and the more they change, the more they it's like the more you are enslaved to it, because then it's to some extent, there was some perception of freedom, but then now it's going towards, again, a shackled society, where you're gagged. There's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of movement, there's no freedom of association, there's no freedom of choice, there's no freedom of even just to express yourself. There's no freedom like that. And if you are conscious, and you take note of the way life is going, already those freedoms are very limited. So when you're born into a system that you have to conform to. Then moving forward, now you start perceiving now from either side, because there's duality. So you enter to father, mother, irrespective of if your parent is a single mom, if you are an orphan or anything like that. Already there was a system on ground, and where they conformed to. And them conforming to it at times is not even intentional. They just find that system there, and that's all they know. Then you're born into that system. Then they start training you a certain way. But while you're going through this system, you actually have your own eyes, and you have your own mind. So you can choose for yourself. You see from the root system, you see how it comes up, you see how it's built, and you're able to choose and perceive, because the years that are allocated to you to go through the system within your family setup is 30 years. Because when you're born, between the time of your conception to when you're 30 years, that's your mourning period. During your mourning period, spiritually, you are expected to be within a family setup, within that culture. So you're able to see for yourself, you're able to experience for yourself. You know the repercussions, and you also see the benefits of anything that you are associating or are interacting with. And then from the time you're 30 to the time when you're 60, spiritually, that's your mourning period. That's not morning, that's your afternoon period. So during your afternoon period, you're supposed to set forth now on your own. So go now, establish yourself. You have now been established. The parents and everything have empowered you. So now it's for you to take that empowerment, you go forward and establish yourself. Now at this point, you're supposed to express yourself as an individual, no longer as pertaining to your family, or pertaining to any other root that is now behind you, because now they are behind you, because now you're the generation that has gone forth. See, after your parents, that was the generation before you. Now there's you. So now you're the current generation. Yeah. So now, as you go forth, you're supposed to establish yourself in wisdom and consciously, because you've seen both sides. In every aspect of your life, you always see both sides. There's always duality. You see the person that engages in that and the person that doesn't engage. So you know both sides, what altercations can arise from that, and what repercussions are there. So you see for yourself. Then now from the time you're 60 onwards, it can be 60 to 100, 60. There are people who even live past 100. That's now your rest time. During your rest time, you are actually expected to impact. So you are supposed there are generations that are now coming. During that period of time, you already have children. You already probably you brought forth children during your noon time. You established your own family, you are enthroned in your own business, or if it's a career, you're enthroned in your own and empowered in your own career. Then now you brought children, so during now your evening, during your rest time, you impart knowledge on them. You pass on what you've learned, and what you've experienced, from your experience, from your perception, from your understanding, and all that. And it's now not only two sides, it's three. You've learned from two sides, but the wisdom and the knowledge that you're going to pass on is from now you as an individual. You put together what you learned, then you bring forth as an individual now, as an elder, as now, because now you are considered, even the society, you're considered an elder. So you bring forth on that level. During your rest time, from 60 onwards, you're really not expected to be establishing or to be. It's at that point you're starting to do planting and all that, and that because that's considered abnormal retardation, because you're not supposed to be doing that. Spiritually, you're retarded if you are in your 60s and you are somewhere still planting, still sowing, still trying to do this. You struggle so much. So there are certain signs in life. When you're struggling so much, find out what stage you're supposed to be in. Chances are you're either withdrawing and you're not progressing, you're stagnant, and that's why you are experiencing setbacks, and that's why you struggle so much. So try as best as you can and move forward, because that's spiritually the grace that you have over your life. Is if you are in your 60s, that's the grace you have over your life. So you can actually impact that grace into your life if you just take a few steps forward and start. If you're in your 60s, start behaving as that. So start, even if you're childless, because there are situations where you're in that stage, but you didn't bring forth, but there are still people around you. So take up that mantle and start doing that, and the grace that is over that mantle and over that generation and over that period actually manifests over you. But if you're in your 60s and you still want to behave like you're in your morning period, where between the time you're conceived and you're 30, that's retardation. And that's where you find you struggle so much. You're toiling, you're being molested and abused right and center, be it physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, even psychologically, because you're not where you're supposed to be. And if you are still in your parents' house at this point in time, even if you're there to the extent that you'll say, like, I'm taking care of them, there's still an issue, because you're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to have left. Go and take care of them in your home. If you're able to, let there be a transfer of ownership and leadership between your parents to you. So also spiritually, that is recognized, because spiritually, covenants, contracts, and all that are really, really recognized. So now at this point, when you're in your 60s, you've already in your 30s, because then now you're from your parents' home. Now you're on your own, you're out there, lone ranger. Now at this point, you learn manifestations, because you also learned them in the during that stage, but then you were learning them from angles. Now you've seen it for yourself, so now you're either conscious, you're very alert, and you're awake, what hence they call it woke. You're awake and you're responsible, so you take charge. You already learned the right way, but that the person who has learned the right way already starts manifesting from their parents' home, or from whatever home they came from. But somebody who has like now, if somebody who is learned, by learned I mean during the period where they were in their parents' home, from conception to 30 years, they were actually imparted with wisdom and knowledge that is from the universe, and not from the society, and not from the Babylon system. But you find there are people who are imparted with wisdom from now the system on ground, the government of the day. So they grow up being tamed, and they grow up as they're called sheeple. They follow. They have the follow mentality. They follow rules. They follow everything. If the government says that this sickness has crossed borders and now you have it, they have it. They manifest it because they obey to the letter, and that is all that even goes through their minds. But then there are people who actually, even during very young ages, they're able to think for themselves. They're able to just think outside the box and be like, no, that doesn't make sense. And when you rise like that, what happens is the universe also backs you up, because at that age, if you already know this and this doesn't make sense, then you're presented with what will make sense to you. So if you start speaking and you're like, but this education system doesn't make sense, and to me it doesn't make sense, because why are we being taught ABC and this and that and that, you start experiencing either out of body experiences, or you start experiencing teachers, now universal teachers. There's a saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When you start questioning certain things irrespective of age, your teacher appears, because the universe also will teach you. So me growing up, at one point I would see some domestic wrangles around the home, and part of the way they'd start to the end, and I was very young, because I was, I think, not I wasn't past 13. And at this point, I was thinking, but this is wrong. But it's not wrong in the sense that domestic violence is wrong. It was wrong in the sense that one of the partners was provoking it. And then when they provoke it, they'll turn around and play the victim. So at this point, I'd already perceived and discerned that this whatever they were doing was wrong. So I would speak up, and because I've grown up, I'm very assertive. I'm very bold and confident, even in what I say and how I think. So if I feel something is not right, I'll speak up and be like, this is not right and it's not making sense to me. So at that point, I'll be like, why would you do that? Why would you treat so and so like that? And they'd be like, no, 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 you're a child. You're supposed to do this and this. I'm like, but if you're teaching me A, B, C, and D, why would you turn around and do the complete opposite? So even at a very young age, I was already questioning a lot of things. And then as I'm seated there, I'd start asking and be like, but what my mom is doing is not right, or what my dad is doing is not right. Then you hear something, you get impacted by knowledge, as in it just lands, yeah, and it explains. Like now, in one of those cases, the explanation was, this is somebody who is still hurting. This is somebody who has never healed. This is somebody who was traumatized from way back. So whatever reactions, whatever responses she's bringing forth is not her as an individual. It's her upbringing, her background is still with her, to the extent where she's not been able to come to the foreground. And that's how she responds to everything, and that's how she assimilates anything. If you do anything to her, if you speak to her, the first things that she perceives or hears are all the names that she might have been called in the past, first, before she hears what you're saying. And then now whatever you're saying actually solidifies and settles into her brain. You've actually It's like you're attacking her also. It's like you're also judging her based on whatever it is, shortcomings she might have been rejected upon, or she was mistreated upon. So she wasn't free. She was still shackled up by past experiences. She was she had so much trauma. So at this point, I was able to discern, and I was like, okay, so this is her issue. So from then on, I would never even question if she does something. I just tell her like, no, I don't think so and so meant it like that. Then she's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, I think she just said it in passing, like she was joking. She's like, oh, because I thought she meant it, because she said A, B, C, and D. I'm like, no, no, because I'd already known, and I saw that this was somebody who was hurting so much that whatever was being done to her, irrespective of whether it was a child, a grown up, she was taking it as, if it's a male individual that abused her or tormented her in any way, any man who would come around, be it a small child or a boy, she would take it, her guard would go up. And she'd be like, anything that that person would say, she'd take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, she'd be like, oh, he's telling me that, so they want to continue doing this to me and that. And she wouldn't voice out what her thoughts or what she's feeling, but you'd see her get very guarded. She'd become very almost hostile. And I was like, hey, why is this happening? Why does she do that? And I'd start getting explanations. Yeah, she's like, this is somebody who was abused at this point in time. This is somebody who has never gotten clarity. This is somebody who has never really gone through therapy or anything like that to just release her from whatever trauma she's going through. So what she does is she trauma bonds with people, and she trauma bonds with situations. Now, the unfortunate bit about that is you might just be somewhere and your name just happens to trigger something in her, and then the violence that follows, it's not even a joke. And so from that point on, I was able to just perceive and be like, okay, so this is the issue. And that's how I deal with many people. Because for me, before we even bond to an extent where now we have like, we form soul ties, or we have like contracts or covenants. Because that's what happens when you meet with somebody. You become friends. That's a friendship contract. You form a soul tie on the basis of friendship. So you gain legal ground over them, and they gain legal ground over you. So now, for her, and even at times some of the uncles I'd see around, I'd always be able to discern and perceive what the issue was, and I'd be like, what, but why is this going on? So for me, even during a very young age, I was already now getting taught, I was already getting schooled now spiritually, and even in terms of consciousness, I was being schooled now on this is how this is what is happening. Whatever you're seeing, it's limited, it's only maybe 5%, but what's actually happening is this and this. And then now, the more I'd stay around that person, I'd be able to discern the entire issue of foundational, if there's a foundational issue or if it's just an individual issue, I'd be able to identify and know what the issue was. So growing, when you're coming forth and you're coming through your family setup and all that, you gain either holistic wisdom or knowledge, or whatever, I'll call it the way the world calls it, diabolical. Part of it is diabolical, because if you think about it, all these experiences, actually the energy surrounding it, even your entrance into the realm that is earth, you'd still call it within the aspects of spirituality. And that's where now the foundation of life is spirituality. And now the reason why I say majority of what is happening is not diabolical, is because when you enter, I've already explained, you enter through a system, and the system, part of that system has religion to it. Now, religion teaches against spirituality, against traditional ways, and against any sort of culture that will take away from religion as a whole. So one of the reasons why things like witchcraft, things like worshipping, not really worshipping, but acknowledging your ancestors and giving honor due to them, they call that diabolic. They say it's traditional. You are worshipping ancestors, and that's paganism and all that. And they say you are also doing idolatry, because some of the cultures actually craft out forms of beings that they pay pilgrimage to in reference to the actual deities, because the majority of the deities are spiritual beings. So they call that paganism, they call that idolatry, they call that all sorts of names, diabolism, they call it witchcraft, they call it it's evil, wickedness, and all that. The reason why that is so is so that to deter you from that, because, and because now if you start following through and finding out, now if you start worshiping the right way and finding out what elements you actually are able to command and control, because even within you, you're able to command a lot, even when you don't know, you're able to command a lot. But the problem is now you're doing it out of ignorance, and that's very dangerous, because you can actually self-harm, or you can create a very serious problem, because at the end of the day, whatever, all these elements are just versions of energy. It's energy you're moving around, it's energy you are either introducing into something or taking away from. Now, when you break down energy, you now get elements. When you break down elements, now you come now to a point. Now it's vessels. This vessel contains this. This vessel contains this. This vessel contains that. Yeah. So now you, as a moving person, you as an individual, you're a vessel, and within you there are a lot of elements within you. A lot of elements. how you speak, how you carry yourself, the energy that always pushes you either out or in. When you project, there's an energy responsible for that. When you withdraw, there's an energy responsible for that. So when you do all these things, there are certain deities and certain narratives and doctrines that you're actually paying pilgrimage to. I think I'll end this for this video. I'll end it here, and then I'll continue in the next one. It's long, but I'll try and finish. Ashe, 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 and so it is.